Which is the best 13-inch Ultrabook, the Dell XPS 13 or the HP Spectre x360? We're going to find out. Stay tuned. The first thing you should probably ask yourself is, what kind of device do you want? Do you want a 2-in-1 laptop like the HP Spectre, which can turn into a tablet, or do you want a straight up laptop like the Dell XPS 13, which also has an additional touchscreen? So if you do not use touch, you don't want to use any kind of tablet form, then go with the Dell XPS 13. It's very traditional in that sense, and it does it well. HP, on the other hand, of course, is a full-on tablet. You can basically rotate this around and turn it into a tablet and go into tablet mode. And it's pretty fantastic. At 2.85 pounds, it's actually light enough where I don't mind using it in this form, and it actually feels really nice. Of course, you could also use it in tent mode. You just get a lot more options here with the HP Spectre, and that's actually kind of a big deal. More importantly, if you don't ever use this, it's just a fantastic laptop. It doesn't feel like a transforming device. It feels like a normal laptop that happens to be able to transform into a tablet. Because of that value, you get more with the HP. It does not have a digitizer. You cannot use a pen with the HP. Neither one of these you can really use a pen with, so do not expect that. All right, let's talk a little bit here about design. Both of these devices have a lot of similarities, but some important differences. First of all, when it comes to the Spectre, you're talking a completely metal device in and out. So below and on top here, and it feels really good. It's also cool to the touch though. And in the wintertime, you do feel that coldness. It's not a huge deal, but something worth pointing out. Meanwhile, the Dell XPS 13 is going to be metal on the outside, but has a soft touch paint on the inside, which is definitely more inviting and feels nicer when you first put your hands down. Downside with the Dell, of course, it's a grease magnet. So this does pick up oils very easily. You're going to have to wipe it down on occasion. Same thing with the keys and the trackpad. Now, for some people that bothers them, others it does not. It actually does bother me, but at the same time, this feels really, really nice. When it comes to the HP Spectre, on the other hand, being all metal, you're not going to notice grease on it, and that's a really big deal. I think this stays cleaner and nicer looking for a longer period of time. When it comes down to weight, they're both pretty similar as well. You talk about 2.9 pounds and 2.85 pounds. In other words, basically the same. In terms of thickness and size and all that stuff, it's a little bit different. The Spectre is going to be thinner than the Dell XPS 13. However, the Spectre has a wider base because of that. So basically they spread this out over a wider area where the Dell is more compact. The Dell is like so small though, it definitely feels almost weird when you put it in your lap that you can't believe it's a 13-inch laptop just because it's so compact. Which one is better is, once again, personal preference. They're basically both about the same when it comes to volume, and that's really what's important. When it comes to speakers, of course, you have with the HP Spectre, you're going to get 4 speakers. You get 2 up here and 2 on the bottom, which can be used, of course, in tablet mode. The Dell only has 2 speakers on the side. Having said that, differences are important. The HP can get very loud, where the Dell XPS 13, though, I would say sounds a little bit more bassy, and you can feel the vibration in the body itself. It feels a little bit nicer to me. I actually prefer the Dell XPS sound, but I can't deny this thing gets really loud and can crank a lot, so that's really nice. When it comes down to the displays, there's going to be a lot of personal preference here, but both of these devices have excellent choices. The XPS 13 has 2 options. There is a Full HD matte version, which is really good if you want extended battery life and you work a long time, like typing and that kind of work. That's going to be your best bet. This option right here, of course, is the QHD Touch version, which is the more expensive one, and it is easily probably the best display you're going to get on a 13-inch display. Between that and the bezel-less design, it just looks absolutely phenomenal. It's very bright, it's very crisp, one of the best monitors I've ever seen. When it comes to HP, on the other hand, you're stuck with a Full HD version that's glossy, and that's your only choice. They may introduce an AMOLED QHD version at some point, like they did for the last generation, but they haven't announced that yet. Now, having said that, it's a very good display. I really don't have much complaints with it. And I actually think Full HD is totally fine for most people. It's also a full touch screen because, of course, this turns into a tablet. I should point out though, it's not as bright as the Dell when it comes down to nits. So you're going to, if you work outside a lot, you're going to probably prefer the Dell version over this one. Both are very good displays. Both have edge-to-edge bezels. On the other hand, HP though has bezel on top and on the bottom. Over here you have a Full HD web camera, and it's on top where most people are used to it. It's also a full Windows Hello option, which means it can log in just using your face. Turning to Dell, on the other hand, you have a 720p camera, and it's located down here in the corner, which is always weird. That's because obviously they have no room up here on top of the bezel. Of course, how much Dell's camera placement bothers you just depends on how often you use it. If you are using a web camera a lot, with Skype for conference calls, go with HP. It's a better quality camera, the placement is better, and you get the Windows Hello feature. It's just overall a better choice. Let's head to ports and buttons, always very important. As you can see here on the HP Spectre, we do have the power button on the side. I actually hate this. This totally bothers me, but there's a very good reason why they did it. This device, of course, turns into a tablet. And when you're in tablet mode, you do not want the power button basically where the keyboard is, because it's going to be kind of in an awkward position. I understand that. I still don't care for it. It's very flush. It's kind of hard to feel for, but so be it. You also have the grill here for exhaust port. Some people don't like this. I actually think it looks fantastic, but once again, personal opinion. Headphone jack, and of course you have a USB-A on here, which is really nice for legacy for Mac people. I feel bad for you. You can basically use any USB device here. Coming around to the other side, this is a little bit more future and forward-looking device. You do have two USB Type-C ports here. You can use them both for charging, really nice. You get the fast charge on there as well, so that definitely helps. A little bit, like I said, more forward thinking. That's because you do not have an SD card slot here. You do have, of course, a volume rocker on the side too. Once again, a little bit weird placement, but that's because this turns into a tablet, and that's kind of where it's placed. So let's take a look now at Dell. So everything is kind of similar, but there's some differences. You do have the speaker here, of course, on the side, which is really good placement, by the way. You do have this button here, which when you press gives you your battery life of the device, and that's kind of cool. It saves you from having to open it, gives you just a nice little meter. You do have the headphone jack, of course, a USB Type-A plug there. You do have a USB Type-C, which can also charge and recharge devices, acts as also a Thunderbolt 3 output there for display, which is really nice. You do have a proprietary Dell charger, of course, the traditional barrel one. I prefer USB Type-C, but there you go, barrel it is. Coming around to the other side, Dell, of course, keeps the SD card slot here. They're becoming one of the few manufacturers and Ultrabooks that are keeping the SD slot. I don't know how much longer that's going to happen, but if that is important to you, go with the Dell. It's kind of a big difference. And you have another USB Type-A port here, as well as a Kensington lock. Let's talk a little bit about the keyboard, probably one of the most important features of any laptop. Both of these are very good. I really don't have too many complaints. If I had to choose one that's my favorite just from personal preference, it's going to be the HP. It has 1.3 millimeters of travel versus 1.2 millimeters on the Dell. Now that's not a huge difference, but I do like the size and just the way that these keys sort of spring back. It just feels better. I kind of like how they're also metal and don't show fingerprints as much. When it comes to backlight though, obviously Dell has a better contrast. You're going to have white letters on black keys versus the silver keys on the HP. So the lighting is not as good on the HP one, but it's also not that big of a deal, and they have improved it over the last generation, and I find it totally workable at night. Let's talk a little bit about the trackpads. Both of these are really good trackpads. I really don't have too many complaints, but let's talk about their differences. HP is a little bit wider. For some people, that's kind of a big deal, and it's actually a nice feature to have. However, Dell goes with Precision software. So that's the Microsoft labeled one, and basically means it works a little bit better with Windows 10 in my opinion. I really like Precision. It just feels more natural. It's basically tuned by Microsoft, and it works really well here on the Dell. HP, on the other hand, does not do that. Instead, they use a Synaptic software. Now, some people like that. It actually gives you more options. However, I had to spend a little bit more time to get it the way I like it, and if they'd just gone with Precision, I would have been happy with it. If you do go with the XPS 13, I do warn you that sometimes they do have issues with loose trackpads. So if you get this device, check it. It should not rattle when you tap it. If you do experience that, definitely get a return right away, but that's only a small percentage of devices that I have heard about so far. Let's talk about raw processing information here. Both of these run the 7th generation Intel Kaby Lake processor. Of course, both of these are running the Core i7. Now, Dell allows you to get a Core i3, Core i5 option as well, and that allows Dell to hit the $799 price mark as a starter device. HP, on the other hand, starts at a Core i5 and goes up to Core i7. That means this device starts at $1,000. That's kind of an important difference, but then again, there's some other changes there as well. Both of these have 8GB and 16GB RAM options, which is pretty important, so good there. But Dell once again goes down to 4 gigabytes, which again is part of that $799 model. I don't necessarily recommend 4 gigabytes, but it is doable, and for $799 it's still a pretty fancy laptop. When it comes to storage, both of these have very good SSDs. We're talking basically top performers. You can get them up to 1 terabyte on some devices in 512 and 256. Same thing with the GPUs. They're both using the Intel built-in GPU, so nothing advanced there. There's no Iris graphics, not yet at least. When it comes down to heat and fan noise, there are some important distinctions. Now, both of these devices run pretty much at the same temperature. So say you're gaming, you're going to be hitting probably a max about 115 degrees Fahrenheit on the bottom. That's borderline uncomfortable. It's not too bad though. I will say the Dell XPS 13 is much quieter though. You can barely hear the fan. Now you can of course get it to kick on if you're doing under heavy load, but for the most part under regular usage you really will not hear it. I do hear the fan a lot more frequently with HP. It's not a big deal, but you do hear it come on, and that's sort of like an important distinction between the two. I'll also say because of the all-metal design, the HP tends to pick up more heat throughout the body, so you really kind of feel it more, whereas you don't feel it as much with the Dell version. So in a way, you can kind of give Dell a little bit more credit here for better thermals, but they're overall pretty similar. Let's talk about battery now. Both of these are very good for battery. Partly that's because of the Kaby Lake processor, which helps a lot. Now, if you really want the most battery, I say go to Dell XPS 13. It edges out the Spectre just slightly, probably by an hour or two. That's not insignificant, and that's running the QHD display with touch. That's actually very impressive. You're going to get all that power plus this phenomenal display. You still can get around 10 hours of usage. Don't forget, if you want even more battery, go with the non-touch Full HD version. I could imagine that pushing easily 13 hours of real-world usage, so that is pretty impressive. On the other hand, when it comes to Spectre, you're talking at least 8 hours, I would say, of real-world usage, and that's not trivial. That's actually a lot. And there is this critical point where you get past 8 hours where it doesn't really matter. Don't forget, the HP can, of course, fast charge, and it charges by USB Type-C. Basically, plug this in for 90 minutes and get 90% battery back. When it comes down to pricing here, it's very important. HP Spectre, I think, is definitely the better value. You can get a Core i7 with 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage for $1299. That same device from Dell is going to run you around $1,800. Now, granted, Dell gives you a QHD display, which is phenomenal. Perhaps my biggest criticism with the Dell XPS 13 is simply that the HP Spectre has exceeded it in terms of features and pricing. The XPS 13 is still a fantastic device, it's just that Dell's resting in their laurels a bit here. We need to see Windows Hello and some additional features to keep up with the competition. So that's my pick for the best 13-inch Ultrabook, the HP Spectre X360. But let's be honest here, if you get either one of these devices, you can be very happy. They're both fantastic devices. You can head to Windows Central to read our full reviews or watch our YouTube videos for more information. Thanks for watching. Take care, everybody.